You're listening to The Financial Plan, brought to you by Vim Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor with the SEC. The content on this show is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered personalized investment advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any securities. Investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. For guidance on your specific situation, consult a qualified financial professional.
Welcome to The Financial Plan. I'm George Tijerino. I've spent over 20 years in financial services, and every week I'm answering the questions that keep people up at night. On today's episode, we're talking about couples who can't agree on money, whether you're actually on track for retirement, how to get your parents to finally talk about their finances, index fund versus picking stocks, 529 plans, and how to find a financial advisor you can actually trust. First question comes from Rebecca in Nashville. My husband and I keep fighting about money, not because we're broke. We actually do okay, but because he's a spender and I'm a saver. I feel like we're constantly working against each other. Is there any way to fix this, or is this just who we are? Rebecca, you're not really describing a broken marriage here. You're describing about 60% of the couples who I speak to on a daily basis. I joke around a lot and I tell people that I'm part-time financial advisor and part-time psychologist because this is a very, very normal situation that you're talking about here. And I want to tell you something that might actually make you feel a little better here. The spender and saver dynamic is not a flaw, I don't think. You just have to kind of figure out and kind of meet in the middle here. So my recommendation to you in this situation is to bring in a third party. You don't mention if you do have a financial advisor or not, but a financial advisor can be very useful in this situation where there is a third party that you guys all just throw all your stuff onto. Believe me, it's pretty common. So what you're going to do there is that person is going to keep you both accountable and try to figure out a middle ground to where you are both getting to wherever it is that you want to get to. This is very common, and I speak about it a lot. Depending on how you were raised or what kind of situation you were raised in, you're going to view money differently. Everyone views money in a different sense. Some people think money is the most important thing in the world. Some people just want whatever it is to get by and just want to live in the mountains, right? Everyone is different. There's no right or wrong way of looking at things, whether you're the greedy billionaire or the other side. Who's to say that, which person is right and who's wrong? So it's important to have a third party that you can go to that is looking out for your best interests at heart. I am a firm believer that you should be somewhere in the middle. You should be a saver and you should be a spender. It might be because of what I've seen in my career. I've seen a lot of people save every penny they have and then unfortunately get sick and never use any of that money, and they didn't enjoy the things while they could because they were saving for a future that never came. And again, that is probably a minority, but if that were to happen, I think it would be a terrible way to realize that's happening. So I think it's important to do both, and there is definitely a middle ground, and I think a financial advisor would definitely help in that situation. Second question here comes from Chris in Sacramento. I'm 38. I have about $180,000 in my 401k, and I want to know if I'm on track for retirement. Is there a benchmark that I should be comparing myself to? Is there a benchmark? Yes, probably. Should you use a benchmark? No, absolutely not. Benchmarks are just way too broad sensed. I think this is, and I'm going to, we call it talking our book here, but this is why you need a financial plan, Chris. Everyone is different. Like I said before, everyone looks at money different. Without knowing what your goals are for retirement, or not even retirement, you're 38, you're still young. Without knowing what your goals are, let's say 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, these benchmarks mean absolutely nothing. So the financial plan is the best thing for you here. And the reason for that is that we're going to input the information that matters to you. Like I spoke about in the last question, maybe you want to have a different color Lamborghini when you retire for every day. That person needs to save a lot different than the person that just wants to live in the current home that they live in or in a nice apartment and just, go have a coffee every morning and just be okay reading a book. Those two people are completely different. And without knowing that, I'm just giving you blind information, right? So there's no, the benchmarks are very useless in that sense. And you're really doing the, comparing yourself to the Joneses there, where you don't know what's going on next door. So I'm sure you can find some benchmarks. I know, I think it was Fidelity put out some benchmarks, but again, without knowing the full picture, I don't really think it's useful. I think go and meet with a financial advisor if you don't have one. If you want to reach out to me, I'll definitely help you out. Let's do a financial plan and let's really put a plan in place for you and not for some random benchmark. Third question here. My parents are in their early 70s, still pretty healthy, and they refuse to talk about money. Yeah, I don't even know if they have a will. I'm worried that if something were to happen, we'll be completely in the dark. How do I bring this up without making them feel like I'm after their money? And this is from Vanessa in Philadelphia and Philly. Again, another very, very normal topic. And it might seem like your parents are being hard-headed and, I guess they are being hard-headed, but this is a very touchy subject. And this is where somebody like me or an attorney or a CPA would come in handy, where they can kind of act as the intermediary in that sense. There's so many things that can be happening here. First and foremost, they're going to be talking about something that's very uncomfortable, and they're talking about their death pretty much, right? They're talking about leaving behind the money to somebody because they're no longer there. And that's obviously something difficult to speak about. I mean, I've obviously never done it, but I've been in that situation where I've been on the other side of it as a professional, and I can see how much it weighs on people. I think having a third party, again, whether it be an attorney or something, that's important. There might be something that they are not telling you because they are worried about the way you're going to react to it. Maybe they don't want to leave all the money to you, or they want to leave more to a sibling or a grandchild or whatever the case may be. And I think that's where the third party comes into play, and they can have, more honest conversations. I'm not to say that this is the situation that you're going through, but I've had conversations where the conversation with the family is much different than the conversations that we have, when it's just one-on-one. So, yeah, I think it's important just to let them know. Let's assume that they're just bad with money and they haven't really thought about this. Let's assume a best case scenario. You really have to tell them that, this is the right thing to do, making sure that there's a will in place in case something were to happen, so that it doesn't create a huge burden on anyone else in that situation. So I think that's pretty important, letting them know how important this is to not only you as the family member, but to them. I think it's important to know that if they have a durable power of attorney, a healthcare proxy, like those are really important things that everyone should have, especially when you're up in age, that if something were to happen to you, somebody is in charge and you don't have to go through courts and all that. And I will say, don't feel bad. I think it's like roughly 2 out of 3 Americans don't have a will or basic estate planning. So you're not this isn't out of the ordinary. This is normal. But I think just continuously bringing it up and putting a little bit of pressure would definitely help. Question number 4 is from Aaron in Denver. I've been investing in index funds for about 5 years. I feel like I'm doing the right thing, but lately people keep telling me I'm leaving money on the table by not picking individual stocks. Am I being dumb? So, Aaron, no, you're definitely not being dumb. You're actually doing what the data suggests. Let me tell you what the data actually says, and then I want to address why people telling you this might not be as smart as they sound. This question cuts to the core of one of the most important debates in all of investing, and the data has a clear answer that most people don't want to hear. The overwhelming body of research shows that the vast majority of professional fund managers, people doing this full time with a team of analysts and proprietary data, fail to beat the benchmark consistently over the last 10 to 20 years. So no is the answer to the question. You're not doing anything wrong. The people, this is something that gets brought up a lot to me. You always have the people that are telling you about their stock that they picked and went up, 100% or whatnot. This is like the person at the casino that tells you that they won $10,000, right? But they didn't tell you that they lost $50,000 winning those $10,000. This happens quite a lot. It's very normal for somebody to only tell you about the winners, but none of the losers. Nobody's going to tell you, oh my God, I'm terrible at this and I've lost a ton of money. I can tell you with almost 100% certainty, investing in the indexes is the way to go for most people. Now, if you do want to, dibble and dabble in stocks, that's perfectly fine. What I would do is I would piece out a little bit of your portfolio. Let's say your portfolio, whatever, is $100,000. I would do $90,000 in indexes, and then that 10%, that $10,000, that's what I would use to kind of play around with. And you can pick stocks there, and you can see if you like it or not. A lot of the times you really have to be on top of these things, and a lot of people don't want to be on top of the market all day long. That's what I'm for, and other professionals in that sense. I am not here. I think there's a misconception about what financial advisors do. I'm not here to help you beat the market. That's not necessarily what I do. I can help in that sense, and most of the time we do. But what I am here to do is to be your financial quarterback, let's say, right? If you have questions based on what you're doing. And the number one thing that I do, or that I think I do as a financial advisor, is keep you from making bad decisions. When the market is down 20% last year, 30%, and everyone is freaking out and selling out all their stocks, right? If I prevent you from doing that, I have paid my fee for years and years and years in advance, right? Because if you do sell when the market's down 30%, and then you wait and wait and wait, and then when the market recovers, then you buy in, you just guaranteed yourself a 20, 30% loss. It's hard to make up that money. So if somebody like me can prevent you from making bad decisions, I think that's where I make my money, or that's where I feel like I add the most value to my clients. Next question comes from Michelle in Austin. I have 2 kids, 4 and 7. Everyone tells me to open a 529 for college, but I'm worried my kids won't go to college, or that college will look completely different in 10 years. Am I overthinking this, or is a 529 actually risky? So great question. And the kind of math, the arithmetic on the 529 changed last year, because before it was solely for college, right? So it did create this weird, like, how about if they don't go to college, or whatever the case may be? First and foremost, this is a completely legitimate concern, and it's smart that you're asking now before just doing something blindly. So last year, or actually in 2024, the Secure 2.0 Act came out, and what it did was it allows now for up to $35,000 in unused 529 funds to be rolled over into a Roth IRA for the beneficiary after 15 years. So this is a huge, huge, huge benefit. So if you are worried about what if they don't go to college, then they've got you covered here. So what does that mean? let's say you do save up $20,000 for college. They decide, hey, you know what? I'm not going to college. I'm going to go to a trade school. I'm going to be a plumber, an electrician, whatever. I'm going to start my own business or whatever the case may be. That $20,000 can now be rolled over into a Roth IRA to your son or daughter. And that money is now effectively a retirement account that you started when they were 1 or 2 years old, right? So that's an amazing head start to retirement that I think is actually one of the small times that the government has actually done something really good for us. I think that's a huge, huge, huge benefit for them. Another thing, 529 funds can now be used for K through 12 tuition. I believe the limit is $10,000 a year starting in 2025, and I believe that number is going up in 2026, but I'm not 100% sure on that. We can look that up. It can actually also be used for student loan repayment, and college is now very broadly defined. So now like trade schools and apprenticeships are part of it as well, which is amazing again. Another thing you can do with 529s is that you can change the beneficiary. Let's say one of your kids doesn't want to go to college, but the other one does. You can always move that as well. There are alternatives to the 529. You can just save it in an account in your name. You can do something called a UGMA or a UTMA account that offers a little bit more flexibility. There's a lot of different routes here, and I would like to know a little bit more about the situation before giving some advice here. But just to answer your question, I think a 529 is a great vehicle for saving for the kid's future now, especially with a Roth IRA portion of it. I think if you really are worried about them maybe not going to college, then maybe sticking to that $35,000 number is probably the right the right way of doing it. And then the rest you can save just in a regular savings account. Next question comes from Linda in Chicago. I'm 52 and my financial advisor just retired. I need to find a new one, but honestly don't know how. How do I even know if somebody is good or if they're just going to sell me stuff? So this is something that happens quite often, and I think it's going to happen to a lot of you often, within the near future. If you do have a financial advisor, most of the financial advisors in our industry are much older, and then you have young men like myself, at least I think I'm young, or I still think I'm young. I'm pretty certain somebody has taken over his practice. You can start there and talk to them and see, if you mix well with them. Here's one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, and I have a little bit of a different view than most people in my industry about this. I believe that as a financial advisor, I believe it's a relationship-based business. I believe you should do business with somebody that you like, somebody that you trust, somebody that either shares your values or is level-headed enough to be able to see what your values are and make sure that your values are met. There's a couple of questions that you can ask right off the bat to just kind of eliminate some of the financial advisors. I'm going to say something that might make some financial advisors angry, but please don't be mad. I would not do business with a financial advisor that works at an insurance location. Think of the big insurance companies. They are more than likely going to lead with insurance, and I do not believe that's the right move to go. You can ask if they're a fiduciary, but that word fiduciary gets thrown around a lot now. And from my knowledge, most of the big places that you go to, they're going to be financial advisors. So if you go to a bank, if you go to JP Morgan, if you go to Wells Fargo or anything like that, they are fiduciaries in that sense. The two questions that you can ask are, and if they're not willing to answer these questions, just run away, just leave. How do you get paid? And explain to me how they get paid. it should be a very, very simple answer, right? If they start going into this rigmarole of this and that and yeah, you got to be worried about that. That's number one. And second of all, what's your investment philosophy? And can you explain it to me without any jargon? I think those two questions will eliminate a lot of the people in my industry that you don't want to work with. If they can't answer the question of how they get paid, that's kind of a little worrisome. Just to put it out there myself, I get paid a percentage based on what your assets are under management. And it's very simple. It's a very simple calculation, and that's it. I don't get any commissions for any products, whether I sell product A or product B. I don't really do many products, but if I were to sell product A and product B, I make the exact same amount of money. And that's kind of what you want because it puts me on the same side of the table as you. It doesn't give me any reason to sell you product B instead of product A. I don't really care because I'm going to make the same amount of money, so I'm going to do the best thing for you. That is not necessary. That doesn't necessarily mean that the people that get paid by the product are doing something wrong or are not, doing the best thing for you. But it does give them that, weird incentive where you don't know, what they're going to do. You can also look for credentials if that's something that matters to you. Somebody with some credentials like a CFP or a CFA, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're better than people that don't. It just means that they took a test. The CFP is a very, very difficult test with a lot of studying and stuff. So to me, it just shows that that person's a little bit more serious or takes their studies a little bit more serious. Instead of the CFP, I did my MBA, which I thought was a little bit more broad and would help me a little bit more. So I don't have my CFP, but I think that's something that's really great. And people that do have the CFP really, do know what they're talking about. You can also ask for something called the Form ADV. So Form ADV is what basically gives you a full breakdown of everything with that financial advisor. We work in a very, very regulated industry. So pretty much any situations that we've had, if we've ever had a bankruptcy, if we've ever been arrested, if we've ever done anything wrong, it's going to be on that Form ADV. If we have outside businesses, it'll show that on there. You can also use something called Broker Check online by FINRA. And on there, it'll show you any issues that they've had. If they've had any complaints from clients, it'll be on there as well. So there's a lot of things, but I think the most important part, sit down with this person. Are you comfortable with them? Do you get along with them? I think those things are more important than anything else. The returns are important, but if you hate talking to the person, I think that's probably more important than anything else. Remember, this person can possibly be a very important person in your life and your family's life. So picking somebody is important in that sense. Last question here. My parents are 68 and 71. They seem to be doing okay financially, but I noticed my mom mentioned something about long-term care at Thanksgiving, and everyone changed the subject. What even is long-term care insurance, and should my parents have it? This is from Diana in Orlando. So long-term care could possibly be something very important for anyone, honestly. So it's one of the most overlooked portions of wealth management that we do and retirement planning. If you were to have a situation where you become medically needy and you start draining some of that money, that could blow through some money really quick. So what long-term care insurance is, basically, there's a lot of different policies out there, so I'm going to be very, vague, depending on the situation. It is an insurance policy that if you lose the ability to bathe yourself or to dress yourself or to feed yourself, there's a list of, I think it's 7 different things. If you lose, 2 or 3 of those, let's say, this insurance starts kicking in and paying out some sort of dividend from it. Now, the issues here, your parents are 68 and 71. I don't even know if any insurance company would give them long-term care, just because the risk on their part would be way too high. So to answer your question, more than likely your parents cannot get it. And if they could, it's going to be so expensive that it's probably not worth it. Long-term care is probably something, if it's something that you worry about as a younger person, it is something that you can look into. There are some policies that kind of blend a whole life policy and long-term care into one. I'm not a huge fan of permanent insurance. I'm gonna make a lot of the financial advisors that are listening to this that do insurance mad, but I just the only life insurance that I see as valuable is a term life insurance for a younger person with children, or a younger person, or even an older person that is the sole breadwinner in a home. So if you are 40 years old with two small children, you should have a term life insurance to at least cover maybe your mortgage and a little bit more in case something were to happen to obviously if something happens to you, the mortgage can get paid, and at least, your significant other is not burdened with that. If your mortgage is paid and you have small children, same thing. If you're the breadwinner, even more. If you were to pass away, this becomes a huge financial situation in your life. So being able to replace some of your income while your loved ones kind of get through that is important. So that's really the only time where I think this type of things make sense. If it's something that really, really does worry you, and usually the people that this worries the most is people that have had some sort of family member go through this. And obviously, if you've had that scar, you're going to be a lot more sensitive to it. So yeah, you can look at a couple of different hybrid options. I wouldn't do a long-term care only plan, just because you might never use it and then you're just literally paying money for nothing. So those hybrid plans at least give you some sort of, some death benefit plus the ability of doing a long-term care rider on top of it as well. Hey, thanks for spending some time with me today. If this was helpful to you, make sure to follow so you don't miss the next one. And if anything we talked about today hit close to home and you want to have a real conversation about your money, there's a link to my calendar in the description. Thank you.